We are neither nutritionists or medical providers. The topics discussed on this show are from our own research and experiences. Please consult your medical provider before attempting anything discussed on this show. Welcome to another episode of
Sjogren Strong. This is Brian.
And this is Lupe.
And this is your weekly podcast discussing how to live an active and healthy lifestyle despite a diagnosis of Sjogren's.
Today, all the way from Canada, I would like to introduce Cristina Montoya. She is the Arthritis Dietitian.
And we are super excited to have you on the show today, being a registered dietitian, because Lupe and I talk a lot about diet, and what we put into our bodies dramatically affects how we feel. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Welcome, Cristina. So we would like to hear a little bit about your journey with Sjogren's. You know, when you were diagnosed, how you got a diagnosis, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I'm from Colombia. So I was born in a small town called Almond. And when I was 8 years old, I got apparently mumps, the virus. Mm-hmm. So my thyroid glands, they kept swelling up. So my mom obviously took me to the local doctor and said, "Oh, that's an infection. Let's give you penicillin." And back home, it's all injections. So I had to kind of shove my butt everywhere. And I had to take penicillin shots every day for 7 days at a time. And I had to do it for like 5 months consecutively. And they also gave me like ibuprofen, so the swelling kind of went down. Anyway, so it went like that when I was 10 years old with the same symptoms. My mom used to say that I used to fall a lot. Like I used to fall. I wasn't that great at sports. I got tired really easily. And I started having these, my mom said, like annoying habits. Like I would drink water all the time. I would be feeling like I'm always like eating something because my mouth was so dry. Oh. And then one day, I misbehaved. I was being a teenager, and I was maybe 12 years old. Uh-huh. And I went roller skating with my cousins, and it was raining and all that. So my aunt, she was so mad. So, "No, you didn't listen. So all of you got spanked." So we all got spanked. I didn't cry. "Why are you crying?" "I don't know. You get another spank."
So she hit you harder.
So she said, "You get another one." And I just laughed. I was in pain, but I laughed, but nothing came out of my eyes. I was not crying at all. That's how it went. So they called me when I was maybe 14, 15. My mom kept taking me to different doctors until finally I actually went to nursing school, like a practical nurse. And I used to go and talk to the nurses about the anatomy, like why is my mouth so dry? Why are my glands so swollen? How can I explain that? So when I did like a practicum, I met an internal medicine doctor. He looked at my fingers and he said, "It looks like you, I don't know, look like you're showing some symptoms of autoimmune disease." And I was 16 at that time. I said, What are you talking about?" Anyway, so something happened. He referred me to another internal medicine doctor. For some reason, I got in the hands of like a neurologist, a plastic surgeon, and an ENT doctor because they have to cut me open to see what was going on. And I was terrified. I was 16, and I was, "Mom, I don't want to do that. That sounds awful." And then I was reading up and down. There is a facial nerve. I'm going to look ugly. "Mom, don't take me."
Yeah.
And for some miracle that I still cannot explain, when I was actually, my mom took me to make the appointment to get the surgery done. They lost my my clinical chart.
Oh, good.
It got lost.
Yeah. You took it, huh?
Got lost.
You hit it.
And I was like, oh, I just died of relief. I said, Mom, I'll keep drinking water. Leave me alone. And I was a teenager, right? I just got used to it. I just got used to, I noticed that I couldn't eat bread. I couldn't eat crackers. I couldn't eat really cookies. So I used to love going like for soft cakes. You know how in Latin America we had this 3 milk cake or the tres
Yes.
leches cake.
Tres leches, yes.
That was my favorite cake. That was my birthday cake, the tres leches cake.
Because it's moist.
And exactly. It was like, but that's what I went for. I always went like for eating bananas, papaya, cantaloupe, always like a star fruit, things that were very, very soft. In Colombia, we also have maybe it's cultural from my region. We always have soup with our meals, so soup for lunch and soup for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So I always have some sort of liquid with me. We've had avocado. We also have like fresh juice. And I didn't really drink that much coffee back home. So there's some of those things that I was able to manage because there were like fruits and vegetables available to me all the time. So I said, okay, I can manage. The swelling started to go down around when I was 17, 18, but my mouth was still very dry. And I started getting some cavities. And I think like you, Lupe, 'cause I heard that you're like so into cleaning your teeth.
Yes.
So we were obsessed, right? Like flossing and cleaning and brushing. And so I was developing cavities, but they couldn't really tell why. So they just did what they do, the fill-in. Then what happened when I was, let's say, I left it alone because as a teenager, I was just tired of not getting answers. And I felt bad for my mom, also not getting any answers. And she was frustrated, and I was just becoming maybe a young adult. So what I decided to study nutrition, that was when I was 18 years old. I think I always have this fascination for nutrition overall. I didn't think of the Sjogren because I didn't know that I had it. But I because of what I was feeling and the limited choices sometimes I had, I was actually developing an eating disorder. So although this is like I'm just able to eat bananas and drink water and that's all, because everything else, that's the other thing. I had a lot of bowel issues, my stomach. I always have a heartburn. Like I felt like I couldn't tolerate a lot of foods that they were like traditional for us, like beans and sometimes lentils and things like that. They're grown there. Some fruits like apples and pears, I couldn't really eat them. So I was in a way developing a little bit of an eating disorder because I did have foods available, but some of that I couldn't tolerate.
Yeah, you couldn't eat them, huh?
Yeah, so I always have a lot of gastro issues, like since I can remember, since I was a child too. So that's I kind of managed, and so that was the reason why I really studied nutrition. Why to try to find an explanation where all these symptoms kind of came from. How can I manage with food? But then when I was 21, I was doing my clinical rotation and clinical nutrition back home in Medellin. And for some reason, again, the elevator broke down in the hospital. And so I had to go up and down for 9 sets of stairs. I was 9 flights of stairs, up and down, up and down. So my knees started to get really sore. And I came home and said, Mama, I can't walk. It's really, really hurting. What am I going to do? And my mom is, I don't know. And so I started, then a week later, it was my wrist. then there was my fingers, then my ankles, and then within a month I couldn't walk.
Wow.
I was completely immobile, and my mom was like, "What happened here?" And so that from that point, my mom, I was maybe lucky, maybe because I know this doesn't happen to everybody, that all these symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis kind of show up like that, oh, so aggressively. But then my mom took me went to see a family physician. He was a young guy, and he kind of put all the dots together. And even that's when he started, he was the first one to start suspecting Sjogren, and he mentioned that. And he was a family doctor. I think he just graduated, and probably he just learned about that.
Probably.
And it was very interesting because I said, no, but he started, you have a dry eyes, dry mouth, and, all the hallmark symptoms. And I said, yes, 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 yes. And so within a month, he actually sent me to a rheumatologist. It was very quick. I started feeling all the RA symptoms, let's say October, November. And then by January, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, and they finally put a name to my other symptoms, which is the Sjogren syndrome. They did the lip biopsy back then. And I think there was a little bit of knowledge of Sjogren because of the Dr. Juan Manuel Anaya, the one who wrote the book, that I shared on my Instagram. I was referred to him, and he was actually doing some research with patients with Sjogren's, and he was really passionate about it. And he explained to me a little bit more about it, but there was really not much that he could share in terms of how to manage the symptoms. I think it was still kind of new, I guess, in terms of management.
What year was this?
That was, I think, 2002.
Okay.
2003.
Okay.
That's when I remember buying that book. It was a small book on Sjogren's. I still have it. I read more about it, but it's still, I don't know, it still felt foreign to me. No, I think the rheumatoid arthritis is bigger. Oh no, that's the one that is affecting my mobility. I kind of put it in the back seat, even though it's been affecting my life since I was a child, but I didn't know that. Say, moving forward, I fell in love with my husband, and he said, I'm taking you to Canada, and I'll give you like a new life. And that new life was meaning like better treatment, access to better treatments, and that's what really happened. When I came to Canada, I had access to the biologics like a year after I arrived here in 2008. And that was, wow, that was like a life changer. I could walk again. I could be myself again. But then the rheumatoid arthritis started to kind of get it stabilized, like it was better. I could manage it. I could deal with the pain. But I started to feel my eyes were dry. I couldn't open my eyes. I had a severe bout of irritable bowel syndrome for 6 months. And I couldn't eat anything. I just lived off Boost and crackers. And everyone kept saying, oh no, that's just IBS. You can deal with that. Take some pills. And nothing works. Then again, my mouth super dry and a lot of digestive issues. So I think in 2005, I started learning more about like how to manage IBS with diet. And that's how I really, really got into, okay, if I can manage these symptoms, it might help me with the fatigue and everything else. So that's when, in 2005, I also went to the Sjogren Society of Canada. I went to one of their conference here, and wow, that was an eye opener. I was like, oh my God, this is all that has been happening to me all these years, and I didn't know. And then I actually went to the Sjogren Foundation conference 33 years ago when it was held in Tampa 3 or 4 years ago. And also there, I learned so much that even my husband said, "It's like he came with me and he learned." And he said, "No, I want to know. I want to know what's going on with you." So he came, he joined me, and he attended the whole conference. And so from there, I started seeing, okay, there's got to be more into it. With autoimmune diseases, they still say, well, nutrition is not going to cure it. We know that. But then if it's about like management of symptoms, I really found that a lot of my digestive symptoms I could manage with diet. But I believe around 80 to 90% of patients with Sjogren's do suffer irritable bowel syndrome. Patients with Sjogren also are at higher risk of developing celiac disease compared to other autoimmune conditions. Also, patients with Sjogren's, when you compare to other autoimmune or inflammatory arthritis, are at high risk of more hypersensitivity to certain foods, particularly gluten and milk. Some develop to eggs and corn. It kind of goes back to physiology. And the one thing that we take for granted is the saliva. That's saliva, like gold. I don't even know what it tastes like because I never had it.
Oh, you never had it even as a child?
I honestly can't remember because back from I was 8, I'm 38 years old, almost 38. So it's been 30 years. So if you tell me what saliva tastes like, maybe when I take him from a cookie from my baby's mouth, and I take his saliva.
Wow.
So that's when it took an interest. But the other thing, Lupe, that it really bothered me, not knowing much of that side of Sjogren's, is when I was pregnant, there is, how we lupus and Sjogren sometimes overlap, right? The symptoms and the antibodies.
Yes.
So they told me, your antibodies, the anti-ro, I can't remember the other one, they're dangerously elevated. So they could cross the placenta and affect the baby's heart. And I was like, what? It took me like 15 years to get pregnant.
Yeah, I know. And then they tell you this. That's scary.
And then they said, oh, no, but don't worry. It's only 1 to 2% who are at risk. And I said, excuse me, I'm the 1 to 2% who has Sjogren's and rheumatoid arthritis.
Exactly.
So when people tell me that, I get upset because it's like, the 1 to 2% of that population. Well, luckily, the medical team of the Stony Brook Health Sciences, where I had my baby, they were very diligent. And there's a window between a week 20 and 24 that they check, they do echocardiogram to the baby's heart just to make sure that it's pumping well and everything is flowing well. And it says after that window, if everything is okay, then baby will be fine. But then after he was born, he was again checked to make sure his heart was fine. But then again, you have that risk of neonatal lupus syndrome for the baby. So he was also monitored for that. I didn't know when it comes to planning pregnancy, is that I didn't know about that. And also, actually, I didn't even think I could have babies because for 15 years, nothing happened.
Right.
And when you really read upon autoimmune diseases in Sjogren's in particular, it seems to affect fertility. And Isaac just decided to show up when I decided, like, I'm going to be childless.
Yeah.
And then he said, no, I'm coming here.
I'm here.
Here I am. I'm here. Here I am. So that was quite wild, and having that fear and not. I had the support from the hospital, but I went online and I have the Mamas Facing Forward support group, which is amazing. And they really helped me to kind of ease that anxiety, what was going on. And I met other moms who had Sjogrens. But it's just, how is it that it wasn't the rheumatoid arthritis who was putting my baby at risk? It was the Sjogren.
Wow.
That's a little bit of my journey, Lupe.
Mm-hmm. But now you have a baby and she's fine.
Yeah, so now it's fine. He's being monitored at the sixth hospital. So they did check his antibodies when he was born, then 6 months after. And then when he turns a year in February, they're going to do another test just to make sure that the antibodies kind of are out of his system. He hasn't developed anything related to the neonatal lupus syndrome. Mm-hmm. And honestly, he's a miracle. I love him to death. I just can't believe it. And when I see him, I feel that anything is possible because that baby fought so hard from the moment he was conceived.
It's like your little miracle baby.
He is my miracle baby. And I see him and I said, if he can do it, I can do it.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's really my motivation. And my husband, he's extremely supportive and so understanding of my conditions. He's a wonderful cook, just like Brian, I heard.
Yes. We're lucky.
And it always is making sure, I have to make the gravy, the sauce, and the chicken needs to be tender. Make sure it's the chicken size, not the chicken breast, because she'll choke on the chicken breast.
Yes.
So little things like that we have learned over the years.
We appreciate it.
Thank you for sharing that incredible journey with us. And it's awesome to hear that you have such a great support network.
And you have a great doctor. You had a great doctor back there. And I know that you still keep in touch with your doctor because he sent you a book to Canada.
He's doing. Oh my God, I could not believe it.
Oh, I was so excited for you.
I found him on Twitter and I was like, Estimada Cristina. And I said, oh my God.
And he remembered you.
He did. I was like, wow. I was amazed. And so proud of him that he's so passionate about the autoimmune diseases. He continues doing research, and so proud. I would love to see him again some other setting, but that was great.
So let's talk a bit about the dietitian portion of your life, why you chose that path, and how it affects your Sjogrens and arthritis.
Interestingly enough, when I recently graduated because I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, I actually volunteered for the Arthritis Foundation in Colombia, in Medellin. And I did a lot of presentations and talks to the patients. And I really liked that. And I felt that people had so many questions and how do you prepare meals. And I started to take a little bit of interest in that. It's just my life kind of changed when I came to Canada, and while I have to kind of gain my credentials as a registered dietitian in Ontario, so I had to deviate from that path a little bit so I could get some more of the Canadian experience. Mm-hmm. But it's still surprisingly, when I work in the long-term care homes and a lot with elderly, and we have a lot of things in common when it comes to dry mouth, right? And having swallowing difficulties. So I learned quite a bit about dysphagia or the management of swallowing difficulties, which I really enjoyed. Then really in 2015, when I started getting involved with the Sjogren Society of Canada, they again asked me to do a few presentations on nutrition and to share my Sjogren's journey. I wrote an article for the Sjogren Foundation back then, and it was about irritable bowel syndrome. I think it was in 2015 or 2016. And also, I started writing for the Sjogren Foundation in Spain. I sent an article and wrote it in Spanish. Things kind of again happened, and I was, let's say, I got a job where I was asked to put down everything I'd done. I built on my arthritis dietitian, sort of a little bit of a perceived or potential conflict of interest. So what I kind of built for about 2 years and raising awareness and the fact that at this point this sort of job was it was helpful for my condition at the time in terms of the stress levels and all that. So I kind of put the Arthritis Dietician's journey on the side. I kind of let it there like dormant for like maybe 3 years until this year when I was on mat leave and I started having all these questions again, and I started getting really encouraged by former patients or former connections that I did online or on Twitter, like the RA guy. I had the City View, Lynn Anderson, the lady from Maria from Mama's Facing Forward. And I saw that they were doing such a great job in patient advocacy and education that I felt, I think I have knowledge and patient experience that I could share that could help other patients. And my journey has been quite long. It's been like 30 years with it. That's when I decided I'm going to launch my Arthritis Dietitian blog again. So it really happened this year again.
And you're doing a great job.
Thanks.
We noticed recipes and a meal prep section on your website.
Yeah. So I'm working on it.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, we actually attempted to share recipes for a while, and it didn't seem like our audience at the time was interested in, learning how to prep certain meals and cook certain meals. And I think it takes, somebody that's really motivated in controlling what's happening to them physically to tackle diet, because it is such a big part of our life. What we eat, what we put in our mouth, we do it 3+ times a day. I was brought up with breads and pastas and meats and heavy meals to where it wasn't always, I don't want to say it wasn't quality food. It was all quality food, but it necessarily always wasn't healthy. And it's hard to change that behavior when you were brought up that way.
I completely understand that, because even as a dietitian, we don't always have like the perfect diet. I don't think there's such a thing as perfect diet, because I like to enjoy my food. If I have a piece of chocolate, I want to enjoy that piece of chocolate. There's so many other things in my life that I had to dread and I feel pain. So the one day I want a piece of chocolate, I want my chocolate. I want that chocolate. But it's one of those things that unfortunately, because how to manage. And what I learned, and I think is helping me mostly when Isaac started eating solids. And it kind of clicked that, what I'm nourishing him now, whenever I put in his mouth now, it's going to have the consequences of his lifestyle later on in life, right? And that's still, even though they say, obviously, that is not a guarantee that he's going to develop an autoimmune disease. It's still in the genetic makeup. It's there, but to me, it's more about building a healthy relationship with food, and it's about enjoying food with families and the things that we can bring together. What I love about in my family in particular is because we live with my baby's grandparents. So my husband's heritage is Pakistani. It's an interesting mix. It's a Pakistani and Colombian. And we prepare the meals and they're all like flavorful and all that. So even with my in-laws, I say, you know what? We want to teach the meal planning, for instance, is almost like a lifestyle, because it's setting up that a little bit of that time, perhaps on the weekend, that you're kind of planning ahead as much as you can, because sometimes you don't really have all the energy. But it's so important to say, okay, I have at least, I cut up all the veggies. At least I can reach out to them. If I'm not strong enough, I'm too fatigued, I can put it in a blender, make a smoothie, but you have it available. You put it at least in your mind that this is going to make me feel better. But when you actually have in your freezer is pizzas and like the ready to eat, the hungry man type of foods, the microwavable foods that that is full of preservatives and they're full of inflammatory items there, then that's not really going to help.
Right.
So I think what I started slowly, even for myself, kind of getting in the groove about the meal prep and the meal planning. So I go through a process. I go and sit down with my husband and my mother-in-law. I say, what are we having for the week, right? So I like with my mother-in-law. I love her food. I always said it's Sjogrens friendly because I was always like curries, lentils or chickpeas. And so there's always these like saucy things. So they have like a yogurt riata, it's like a yogurt sauce with cucumber and cilantro. So it's always so easy to swallow and to eat. I'll make sure that we include what kind of everybody likes. We make up like a grocery shopping list, and we all go together. And the moment we come home, we separate maybe an hour to cut up the veggies, put them on those containers, and then we just kind of take them up. And I actually found out that my in-laws even started eating more veggies because they had it all readily available there.
Oh, right on.
It takes a little bit of time, gets a little bit of getting used to, but I think it's rewarding and it will pay off. Because even for me, I'm thinking if I'm going back to work, for my 8 to 4 job, and I want to make sure that I have all the foods, ready for my baby and for myself. Because I travel quite a bit, my job, so I don't want to grab anything that is just a fast food. I want to make sure that I know what is in my food because I bring it from home. And you think that, it might be so expensive. And that's my order, that when I'm going to take that approach, that sometimes you feel that you have to spend so much money on making like an anti-inflammatory diet. And I don't think so. Like, what is it really? When you want to go for like a plant-based diet, so you're going to use a lot of legumes, right? So when you buy the legumes, like the dry legumes, you make it at home, you actually want to get rid of all those carbohydrates that are not very well tolerated when you soak it overnight. And then you kind of cook a batch, like you cook the whole thing, and then you pack it in Ziploc bags or something, and you label it and you put it in the freezer. And so one day you just feel like having beans, just stick it in, defrost it, season it a little bit, and it takes maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes to warm it up and season it whatever herbs you have at home. So it doesn't really have to be that hard. And once you see the foods kind of available in your freezer, and I said, okay, I think I can eat this. Or you can make your own bags with like a pre-made smoothie bags, right? So you're going to put on a zipper bag, you already have like a mix of oats, and you have chia seeds or flax seeds, you put some nuts in it, and so you kind of have that pre-made. And then the next morning that you already have maybe the frozen vegetables, just add it on in the smoothie and just in the blender, just take the smoothie and go, right? Maybe those are the way you can save energy. You can kind of have things that are readily available. When you have the energy to do that, it's so worth it. I honestly feel that's made a big difference.
I never thought about doing the pre-made smoothie, just having everything pre-chopped, pre-cut in a bag, drop in the blender, and maybe add a little fresh juice and go. That's a great idea.
Yeah, you do that. Because for us, there are days that basically, let's say my staples, personally because of Sjogrens, are things that are, again, like very soft. And that's why sometimes I can't eat lettuce. So I'm not a big promoter of salads, personally. When I eat lettuce or I eat fresh celery, it gets stuck in my throat. So for me, salads, I'm not a big promoter, but I think I'd rather put the spinach in my smoothie because it's easier for me to swallow than eating a salad, right?
Yeah, you know what? I find that spinach, because I used to eat a lot of salads and I just haven't in a while. And I find that spinach is hard for me to swallow as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of foods.
What about kale? How do you find eating kale?
I think kale is not so bad. And I like kale because I know I talk about it too much on the podcast, but it helps me go to the bathroom. It really helps me go because if I don't eat healthy, I don't go for days, and then you feel uncomfortable.
Oh, no, absolutely. And that's probably one of the other things that we can talk about it in another time. But one thing that I'm passionate about is that when how Sjogrens really leads to irritable bowel syndrome and like what you can do about that. Mm-hmm. But like, again, one of the things, let's say if I go for breakfast, right? So on my breakfast, I always try to keep also quinoa. Like I cook quinoa in bulk. I don't season it or anything. I just plain, just boil it, and also put it in Ziploc bags. And I like to have my oatmeal mixed with quinoa. It kind of gives it a really kind of nutty taste to it, and it also add a little bit of more the plant-based type of protein. So I love my oatmeal for breakfast. Like I definitely that's my go-to that for breakfast because it's just easy to swallow. And the oatmeal, so you can also like pump it up with anything, right? You just add up like nuts and dry fruit. You can add also, I love like prunes and dates and things like that. Chia seeds, like you just can put anything in there. And I try to kind of use more like the almond milk or the coconut milk because over the years I found more sensitivity to the fluid milk. I can tolerate yogurt and cheese, but the fluid milk, not so much.
On occasion, we'll actually make our own almond milk when we can find almonds at a decent price in bulk that are raw. It's amazing the flavor we get from making our own versus what one would buy in a store.
It really is. It really is. It's just so unfortunate that almonds are so expensive up here.
Yeah, here too.
Yeah, they're expensive here as well. And, that's why we price shop. If we can find bulk raw, then we'll do it. But, the sad thing is about it too, it only keeps for a few days in the fridge once you've pressed it.
Cristina, are there any foods that cause inflammation? And are there any foods that help reduce inflammation?
Well, you see that Brian mentioned earlier is that that American diet. Surprisingly, I wasn't really too familiar with it when I came to Canada because we don't have, or I didn't grow up in with fast food type of food, like fried foods. So anything that is really high in sugars, like simple sugars, high in vegetable oils that contains a lot of omega-6. So anything that is fried and refried, right? So we usually find that when we go to restaurants or fast food in particular. We also, a lot of that refined carbohydrates, right? Like when you eat a lot of like the white bread and that sort of thing, that can also maybe increase the inflammation. But I think, what we always say, like everything in moderation, but in terms of anti-inflammatory foods, what we found is I go back again, like old school for the Mediterranean diet. I think the Mediterranean diet got it right when it comes to the balance. Because you know how nowadays you talked about the keto diet and I'll do the paleo diet and that's going to help me. And you have to eliminate like a bunch of food groups and then you're going to feel great. Yeah, you eliminate these foods for like 30 days and then you go back and eat your normal food. But, the thing is that you're going to have an autoimmune disease for the rest of your life until they find a cure.
Correct.
So it's about finding balance of what you're eating and what you can access and what you can, like what you can, your budget allows too, right? Because a lot of these diets can promise, oh, you're going to feel great, but you have to spend like thousands of dollars in supplements. I don't think that's fair.
Correct, yeah.
I go back to how I, in my own way, or how I grew up in my grandparents' farm. It was also a Mediterranean diet style. Everything that we had in terms of vegetables, it was local, right? As much as we could, because we actually got the fruits and fruits from the farm. Then we all mostly ate plant-based protein, which came from pulses like beans and lentils, chickpeas. We also ate rice back home, a little bit of corn. And I think red meat, very little, like only maybe once a week or every other week because it was expensive. Eggs, we ate it every day. So now when I kind of bring back and you look at the Mediterranean diet, that's really the concept of it. You have like a base of whole grains. If you can tolerate them, great, right? I'm not becoming too familiar with the whole grain situation because I've been gluten free for probably 3 years now. And the reason why is because I developed a severe sensitivity, and it has been very challenging for me to get a diagnosis of celiac disease. So my dietitian, who's an expert in celiac disease, she said just stay gluten free 100% because it just triggers my symptoms. What I would say is getting the proteins from nuts and legumes as much as you can, the red meat or even the chicken, you reduce the amount. Getting healthy fats, now that we're saying from olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. I'm not too crazy about like avocado oils or these fancy oils because you know what, just eat the avocado and then you're going to get more antioxidants and fiber from it instead of spending $10, $15 on a bottle. Maybe for flavor if you want to use it, but it's not necessary. It's
That's
not
true.
really going to be that anti-inflammatory.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of research done on the coconut oils when they're saying that part of the coconut, the monounsaturated oils that contains the coconut, it helps to kind of give a little bit of energy to the cells in the digestive tract, right? So it helps them to heal faster if there's any sort of damage or like a leaky gut type of thing. I like to go simple, but then that's simple, and then you meal prep, and then you can get it right. We would think that we have to make everything so complicated. Like let's say like curcumin or turmeric, it has anti-inflammatory effects. But if you eat like 100 grams of it, who's going to eat 100 grams of turmeric? That's too much.
I think for people with Sjogrens, because we have a lot of fatigue, maybe once a week, Saturday or Sunday, pick a date, meal prep for the week, and that way you'll eat healthy the entire week.
Exactly. One day you may have, the energy to come home and make a really nice stir fry with your veggies, and you might have the time you marinated your chicken and you baked it or you stir fried it. You did that. I love going for whole grains. I love my quinoa personally. I love it. You can make like a quinoa bowl, like in probably 15, 20 minutes. Because sometimes people say, oh no, but I would just call and order in. Within the 15, 20 minutes that you get your pizza, you already have your meal if you did your homework on the weekend.
That's what Brian says. So for me, I find that when I eat sugar, I try to stay away from sugar as much as I can. But for me, I find that if I eat too much sugar, it causes brain fog. Are there any foods that you feel cause brain fog or make brain fog worse? For me, it seems to be sugar. Any other things out there?
I haven't looked into that, but I'm probably going to look into that now that you asked me. Personally, I do feel the same with sugar, especially these days that I haven't eaten any sugar, and I've been going crazy. I don't eat any sugar. But I think it has a place in terms of that inflammation portion. That once you have eliminated that sugar and you reintroduce it, it's like you trigger that inflammation that you didn't really need it. You kind of already had gotten rid of it. So I think sugar could be one component. And again, it depends of what you may be sensitive to, right? So if you might be a person or one of the Sjogrens with multiple food sensitivities, when you add those foods into your diet, for instance, the food sensitivities that I mentioned, like gluten or dairy or corn or soy, if you are one patient that has the sensitivities, that may affect that, the levels of fatigue and maybe the brain fog but that's really individual, Lupe. I find that we really, all of us are really different. We may have the label is Sjogrens, but it's still each person is a universe.
I totally agree. And that covers the next question I was going to ask you. Why is it so important for people with Sjogren's or any other chronic illness to focus on their diets as part of their treatment?
I always see it as always as a holistic approach, because even the diet alone won't do it. And I'll give you an example. I could have, the perfect diet. I've been eating my greens, it's half a plate, a quarter the grains, a quarter the protein. Perfect, picture perfect. But if your stress levels are over the roof, you're thinking about your condition so much, there's no time to rest, no time for physical activity. Everything seems like just overwhelming. Even your body is not prepared to take in those excellent nutrients that you're eating. So it's almost like going to the garbage. So it has to be, you have to kind of maintain that mind-body connection. Not only having that balance, like healthy balance in your diet, but also that balance with your mind, your spirit, and your body. I honestly believe in that. And there is actually research that when there's this gut brain connection, that if one of them is disconnected, then the body doesn't really take well those nutrients. That's what I found is so important, to include a little bit of meditation in your life if you're not into staying too quiet, go for a little walk, try to kind of take a little, unplug yourself from the phone or the computer or TV. Just do something for yourself so your body can actually take in all those nutrients. That's how I see a balanced, healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not only just diet.
I agree. Everything balances itself out.
But one thing I do say, though, in terms of the show is what I learned. Maybe other patients haven't had as severe symptoms as I experienced myself. I feel like everybody's thirsty all the time. And if they're eating like a sandwich without a glass of water, I feel like they're going to choke. But that's not true. They have saliva. I'm always like, when I'm feeding my baby, it's like, here, drink. It is fine. So I always find that in my mind, in my project, in my life project, I wanted to say, I want to create something that is like, it's tasty. It doesn't have to be like a going food, but they're easy to swallow. Something I can eat without having to drink. I have a sip of drink or something. That's my ideal meal, right? Where I can include all those nutrient-rich foods without choking.
Exactly. And you know what? Even I've stopped eating certain foods because they're hard for me to chew. Talk to us a little bit about the walk that you just did the beginning of October.
Oh, yeah. So our Sjogren Society of Canada, it's not as big as the Sjogren Foundation, but then we try to also raise awareness and do a little bit of education. Our walk was look at my small region. So we actually just started a support group. So like a new chapter trying to reach out to new members here on our region, because we're a little bit, maybe an hour and a half from Toronto, like downtown Toronto. So we wanted to kind of create a little bit of a group here, creating some resources. So we invited some family and friends. And on that particular day, a former mayor was there in the park. So it was kind of fun to raise a little bit of awareness around these people. And so we try to support our little society in terms of education. I find it so valuable. And so that's what really we did. I actually baked my tres leches cake.
Oh, yay.
And I brought it. And everybody loved it. It's one of the favorites. And so, yeah, it was a little get-together trying to see what we can do for next year to raise a little bit more funds. again, for education and for the sustainability of the society here in Canada.
It looked like you guys really had a lot of fun.
Oh, it was fun. It's amazing. I brought my nieces and my husband goes with me everywhere. And it was great to have all these support systems. And I guess we start small and then hopefully we start to spread the word and get a little bit more creative in how to do that. I think you guys do an excellent job. Like I'm always like salivating. The saliva I don't have when I
It's
see
tough.
you post.
You know what? We are doing what we can to help bring awareness to Sjogrens. And I mean, I try to share my experience because, basically everybody's on their own journey, but we do what we do because to build communities so people know that they're not alone, and it helps people.
I think it does. I have one of my dear friends that she has RA in Sjogren, and the way she spotted me, I was one of the things that I love doing and relaxes me is going to Toastmasters meetings, and that's how I started getting my English getting a little bit better by attending those. And I also use that platform to talk about Sjogrens and these autoimmune diseases. And when I was in one of those meetings, I was just putting eye drops in my eyes. And then this lady came to me and I said, "Do you mind? Did she just ask me like, you see your fingers? Do you have Sjogren's too?"
What? She knew?
Yeah, it's out of nowhere. And she go and I say, "Yeah." And then from then we became really good friends and we tried to see each other. But at the same time, when we have, not so good days or, it's raining, we're feeling sore and we have plans to meet, but one of us say, today's not a good day. No, I take it. I completely understand it. So let's do another day. Sometimes we get a little isolated when you have, the friends who are, apparently healthy, no health issues and you start canceling all those plans and then they kind of start, maybe you don't want to be with us or you're always canceling and it makes you feel a little depressed, right? But sometimes when you have that small community, when you do understand each other and when we get together, we have maybe go for a cup of tea and we know how precious that time is because we made it. We felt good and we wanted to see each other and no judgment.
Yeah, I've lost a few friends because you don't have energy or you cancel or you push it out. But on the flip side, I've met so many new people and I've made new friends that understand. So that's a plus.
Yeah, that's true. You start seeing what is it that is going to really nourish your life. I always feel it's about like nourishing everything around you, not only food, but everything else. It's so important, and especially when you're living with these conditions.
Most definitely. As we wind down here, if there was one thing regarding diet that you could speak to those newly diagnosed with Sjogren's, what would that one piece of advice be?
I would say that I think it's worth to try that anti-inflammatory diet in terms of going back to basics, as I mentioned. Try to eat the more plant-based foods, salt foods, things that are really gentle on your gut, like a cooked vegetables. Thinking about how those foods are going to nourish you. You don't have to make changes all at once. Take one step at a time. Let's say if you're newly diagnosed and you're the person who have breakfast at McDonald's every single day, or eating out every single day for every single meal. Maybe try to make an effort of making a homemade meal once or twice a week. Like small steps until you reach that goal. That maybe what you take conscious of what you actually put in your meal. It's almost like a wipeout. Once you get used to eating those homemade meals, you know what you're putting into it. once you go out and eat that fast food meal, you're not even going to have a taste for it.
Right.
You need to build up to it. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not your fault if you go back to what you used to do because it's comfort. Don't beat yourself up. There's always going to be another day, a new day, and you can try again. That's how I feel when it comes to diet. Just take your small steps at a time. Don't think that you see on the internet the huge thing, oh my God, you have to eliminate all these things. No, if there's a certain food that you know that is making you uncomfortable, then don't eat it.
That's awesome advice. If people wanted to follow you and what you're doing, do you prefer them do that on Instagram or Facebook, or where are you out there in the webosphere?
I'm really liking Instagram. I post on Facebook, like I go to my Facebook page, but I think mostly Instagram will be my go-to.
Awesome. And we will have links in the show notes to her Instagram and Facebook at the bottom of this episode. And is there anything you would like to leave our listeners with as we close out?
No, thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity. I would love to come back. And I will just continue following you and just stay strong.
No, and Lupe actually brought you to my attention and how food, because, she's not the one in the kitchen prepping most of the time. And she's like, oh, there's some great ideas here. Check this out. And your energy and your upbeat. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here on our platform. So thank you for being you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. It's so nice meeting you. It just felt like just met with a couple of friends. I appreciate that.
I love you, and I love following your page, and I love your attitude, and I'm glad we connected on Instagram. Let's keep living Sjogren strong.